Good afternoon, you awesome people out there. My name is Scott Schertzen. That is Mr. Obi Spencer. And welcome to Spangler Sports World Sports Den on Zingo TV, channel 250 and 249. Please remember to rate and download the Zingo TV app when you download it. It is available, by the way, on the app stores of iOS and Android. By the way, and I'm not going to say BT dubs this time because I got a little flack for it last week. Make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. BT, not dubs. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Bottom line is if you have technology that's relatively up to date, you too can have Zingo. I'm Scott. That's Obi. How are you, sir?
I'm great today. Thank you. We got a lot to cover today. I know the rundown. We had a fun weekend of football. Basketball is really heating up now. We're getting ready for, we missed the Hall of Fame, so we get to talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame possibly. We got all sorts of good stuff to talk about. I'm excited and ready to look forward to it. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So I guess we're going to have to start off with the big news. In the NFL world, there's two parts of big news. One is the fact that the Super Bowl actually has its two teams right now and will be facing off in about a week and a half. But before we get to that, let's focus on something that's a little bit more recent and including some of the tweets that came down today. Mr. Tom Brady has officially, after 22 years, called it a career. In this case, first ballot Hall of Famer, big surprise there. GOAT in many arguments there as well. My question is, and this is the simple and the big one, does he sign a one-day contract and officially retire a Patriot?
Beats the out of me.
Beats the poop out of you on that one.
Look, I saw. So that's not the question I saw coming. But so with that question, this is what I will say. In a lot of the coverage I've been watching, seeing, reading, absorbing, people I'm talking to, one of the things that was noted is that when they did play this year, Bill uncharacteristically went to the visitors' locker room, and Brady was then late uncharacteristically for his presser. I think whatever needed to be said was said then. I think the closure happened. They departed to steal Billy Joel's line, the best of friends, as best of friends as they could. I think at that moment in time, Tom Brady finished his career with the Patriots. I think that's why the Patriots weren't mentioned in the first note. I think that was it. I think that was over. I don't think he signs the one-day contract. That's just my gut instinct. This is not a guy who needs that one-day contract because of the major success he had in the other location. I don't know. Did Manning sign a one-day contract with Indianapolis?
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah, and I do know, on the other hand, Emmitt Smith did the one-day contract with the Cowboys. But he didn't have a successful career with the Cardinals. He was done, went to the Cardinals, played out a year or two, and then but he didn't have this post-success. I don't think Montana did with the Niners.
Jerry Rice did. I know that.
Jerry Rice did, and he had a series of other teams.
He did.
I don't know the full history. I don't think they get the full history. I don't think he does it. I don't think it's worth the $100,000 or whatever for him, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say yes, just to be different in this case, on the grounds that he will always be remembered. Here's the thing. He will always be remembered as a Patriot, but he will always be remembered in Tampa for what he did. A team that was kind of a laughingstock of the league. They flipped the script in a single year between him and ultimately Gronk as well. And despite the fact that somehow a team with Tom Brady and Gronk was a Cinderella team, they won a Super Bowl last year. So he is immortalized in Tampa.
Immortalized in Tampa, sure. I'm going to push back hard on A, they were a laughingstock, and B, they were a Cinderella last year. I think they were a very good team, struggling to make a playoff with a bad quarterback. They got a good quarterback. Got one or two extra people. And, when the season started, there was plenty of people who thought they were going to be super competitive 2 years ago. And obviously they started the season as the favorite for the Super Bowl this year.
Sure.
So I'm not gonna give you the Cinderella part, but he certainly went down there and took a middling team, a team that was a quote quarterback away, and showed that a team that is a quarterback away is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
He proved that's what he proved. Even more than Manning going to Denver, he proved that a team can truly be a quarterback away if the quarterback is really good. Which, if your name is Rodgers, your name is Wilson, and even if your name is Watson, it's very exciting for you this offseason.
Oh, yeah, because now you just had a wide open opportunity show up, drop in your lap in a warm environment too, with a team that has some history there. Now, I've got to admit here, that was not the question you were expecting. So I'm really curious right now, what was the question you were expecting from me?
So I think a lot of the talk has been that I have seen has been, or let me say not that I've seen, that has been on our group chat that we have about this for this show, and it has been, the timing, the questions about the timing, and I put myself in the Tom Brady hater category. I respect what he does. I do not like him, and Hall of Fame careers. I just think Barry Bonds. So, with all due respect to Brady, that's just where my mind goes. I ain't got no proof. No. So, that all being said, I think he timed this as well as he can. I think the decision was made prior to the weekend. I think when you're Tom Brady, you have so many contracts and negotiations around your retirement that you have to work out.
Mm-hmm.
You have to reach out to this person who sponsors. You have to reach out to this agent. You just can't retire because that's a lot of legalese. So I think the decision was made. I think Shefty got his hands on the decision. I think Shefty released that information. I think the story got away from Tom Brady. I think if you had to pick a day to announce your retirement and you are a giant NFLer and you're not in the Super Bowl, this is the week to do it. It's a dead week in the NFL. I'm not going to talk about the Pro Bowl game because I'm not going to watch it. If we were on here on Tuesday talking about the Pro Bowl game, I'll tell you I didn't watch.
What's the Pro Bowl game? It's not even a game anymore. It's a skills competition.
Right. So the NFL needs a little news right now, so it helps the NFL. He wants his flowers, so he'll get his flowers. He deserves his flowers. I think today was the absolute right day and the least selfish day. What I think is funny is there was all these planned funny announcements to congratulate him, like the Giants, congratulations on retiring Eli Manning's best foe and things like that. Mm-hmm. That was dropped up for Friday and now dropped again today because now it's official. But I think the decision was made earlier. He just tried to control the narrative as best he could, and this was the day to drop it. And, like you said, first ballot Hall of Famer, without a doubt, the single most accomplished quarterback we've ever seen. He won with two different franchises, with two different head coaches. That's, to me, it's always a big thing. There's very few who have done that. I do think that a lot of the talk is people were very high. Is he still really good? If that's the question, I saw things in the last few games that said to me, 18, 17 games is not 16 games, and 43 isn't 40. Mm-hmm. My prediction, I think, all along was that the team that was going to beat the Bucs was going to beat the Bucs in the playoffs because Brady was going to have an old man calf. 3 drives in LA territory. They only scored touchdowns on 2 of them. One of them they yielded no points. There was another drive that he missed on the 4th conversion. The old Tom Brady could have made that game a blowout and would have made that game a blowout the other way. Mm-hmm. Or I should say the young Tom Brady. The old Tom Brady was only able to make it a tie. And I think Tom Brady knows that. Everyone is praising him, and Tom Brady's the guy I think who looks at himself honestly and goes, there's a drive that we didn't score points on that I got the ball on my opponent's 45-yard line. I think that more than anything else was the final straw, really. I think he was thinking about going in, but he's like, I didn't play well all game. I don't care what everybody else says. And I'm going to stop talking, but I have another point. But I'm sure you'd like to respond to some of that. But I do have one more point on that.
I do actually have one thing that I wanted to mention in this kind of case. Yes, I do agree with you that the timing was planned deliberately in this particular case because it was basically we'll call it a slow news week. Nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. Nobody really cares about, anything about the Super Bowl really until next week. There is intrigue, but you're still dealing. I mean, the best that you got right now, the argument you could make is that you're still dealing with the AFC and NFC championship afterglow, and even then it's like, all right, but it's not so much afterglow as it is, okay, this happened yesterday. Let's talk about that. I think in this case, like you said, you brought up a phenomenal point where it's not just cut and dry, sign your resignation letter and you're out the door like it is with a regular job. It is more along the lines of you have so many hands and so many different things here and so many people that are working that also admittedly, when they probably get news as big as this, that are kind of like, you know what, keep all this quiet. Yeah, sure, I will. And then they don't,
Right.
And all you need is one of those probably 50 people that work for him, easy 50 people, who knows to basically, all you need is one of those to blab to somebody on the basis of anonymity, quote unquote, and then suddenly, boom, Twitter takes over, internet takes over, and that's the end of that. Go ahead.
It's Schefter. I'd say Schefter is a two-source type of guy.
But somebody got to but in this case, somebody got to Schefter, but if it wasn't Schefter, it would have been somebody else. So It's still one of those things that you have all of these moving parts, and then you have to somehow keep all of that quiet, which in this case, I don't think is actually really that easy to do. But all things considered, and I think you and I talked about it via Facebook the other day, or earlier today, the three of us, about how A-Rod handled it 15 years ago when he announced that he was getting the 10-year extension with the Yankees. It was in the middle of the World Series. Now, that may have been him, that may have been Scott Boras, I don't know. But the way he handled that was 10 levels of douche. And I think in this case, comparing that one to this one was so much better, and like you said, so much better timed, because the Pro Bowl, I'm gonna go out on a limb. The Pro Bowl might actually be outshined by, this weekend, probably by college basketball. It will probably be outshined by, if there is a match, Manchester versus West Ham or United or anything like that. I would not be surprised if European soccer beats the Pro Bowl in the ratings this weekend here in the New York City area. Nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. It is the least exciting all-star game of any sort of any of the sports. Nobody cares. And if they could figure out some way to make it more interesting, I mean, I like what the NHL does where you have each division in like a semifinal starting off kind of thing. One period, go for it. I like that kind of thing there. If they could figure out something to reinvent the sport, I think it's necessary. Now, we can talk a little bit about the Super Bowl and things like that. We can talk about it now. We can talk about it next week. Absolutely. Either one is fine for me. But I know you said you had some more thoughts. So if you want, roll with them first, and we can come back to that if we need to.
Yes. So I have two other thoughts. One, I had one other thought, and then you triggered something in me. So the other thing about Brady this week, again, this is all just about how I think Brady sees himself, and part of why he retired now. While other people are going, he's got plenty left in the tank. Brady has won a Super Bowl with less offensive weapons than just a semi-healthy Leonard Fournette and an incredibly healthy Evans and a beat-up Gronk. He's won with less on offense with that quality of defense he has. And people are giving him that as an excuse for why he didn't win this year, where I think Brady, again, this is a compliment to Brady. I think Brady goes, wait, I've won with less. Maybe I'm not what I was. So that was the other, again, I think to me, that's, I guess, my overriding opinion of this is Brady, unlike the rest of the world, sees himself as having deteriorated, along with Giselle and him being a regular human being outside of football, his family wanting him home. In terms of the Pro Bowl, does this add juice to the Pro Bowl? This will be your last chance to see Tom Brady play football. Does this?
Didn't he drop out of the Pro Bowl? I think Russell Wilson was added to the Pro Bowl.
But was it because of Brady, or was it because of Stafford? Like somebody had to get Brady, because I think those were the two that were going.
No, Brady was. Well, no. The teams that are going into the Super Bowl do not participate in the Pro Bowl.
Right, but you don't know who's going to. They don't announce the replacement until it's official that one of those guys isn't going.
Okay. Yeah, because in this case, Russell Wilson was added, from what I read, because Tom Brady was backing out.
Okay.
You know? So I don't think it might be one of those things where he doesn't want his last game to be, like I said, a skills competition. There is nothing that dude needs to prove at this point. You know, if he wants that man could buy an island in Hawaii, let alone, get the free trip over there.
Right.
So
and
in this
Hawaii, is it in LA now? Isn't it the same?
Is place? It in LA? Okay.
At one point they changed it, but I don't know if they went back to
you know Hawaii. What? I think you're right. It might be LA. But again, this is how low a notice that even I have when it comes to the Pro Bowl, because it's not even a game anymore. You know, I mean, they've had Pro Bowls where the fans have booed the players because they paid good money to watch this, and it's not, and they're lining up like 3 players on the offensive line. You know, it's so exhibition that it's lost so much magic to it. You know.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, like I said, a lot of people are just like, meh, whatever. So I am actually, as we were talking about this, I am really curious to look at the TV ratings for this weekend across the board and see where it lands in sports across the board this weekend. And I would not be surprised, like I said, if college basketball, all the other sports that are out there, whatever, European soccer, all these things actually overtake it. College basketball, I think, definitely overtakes it. But
yeah. So from the Pro Bowl and Matthew Stafford, and you are right, I did double check. Wilson is in specifically for Brady.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to talk a little bit about my first impressions of the Super Bowl and how they've already changed.
Okay.
So my initial impression was there is no way that the pressure from the Rams defensive line was not going to crush Burrow after we saw what happened 2 weeks ago against Tennessee's defense, because this defense is so good. And then I'd start to do some research. And as good as that Rams defense is, Burrow already beat a better defense in the playoffs this year. And that was Las Vegas and the Raiders. Their defense was a better pass defense, a better rushing defense. They were just a better pass defense. So my initial, this is going to be a blowout, which was my initial thought. These two guys, Von Miller and Aaron Donald, are just going to beat up Joe Burrow to death, has already changed from, just by doing a little research. So like you said, over the next week, we are going to start to hear so much stuff about this and that. It will be interesting to see where I land. One thing I will say about the Super Bowl, or even about, let's say, looking back on the Kansas City game, Joe Burrow is getting a lot of props for his 3 scrambles for first downs, which he deserves because they were all great key plays. But when I hear those, they act like Joe Burrow is a statue in the pocket. No, the last successful statue in the pocket just retired. And that's the nice thing about him retiring. We are done with statues in the pocket. Sorry. In my mind, watching Joe Burrow in college, which I do not watch a lot of college ball. I watch a lot of college ball highlights. I believe it was the SEC championship game. It might have been the week before, but I think it was the SEC championship game. He did exactly that. He made a huge scramble for a first down. And I remember as it happened, it basically clinched the SEC championship game. And I said, not only did they win this game, but Joe Burrow just clinched the Heisman, because there was another quarterback at the same time. I think it might have been the guy out of Alabama himself, who was also really good and had great legs and was in the Heisman conversation. So Joe Burrow running the ball, okay, he's not Jalen Hurts and he's not Michael Vick, but he is Steve Young. And every quarterback is going to be Steve Young going forward if they want to be successful. A 15-yard run from your quarterback should start to become expected. What Russell Wilson does, expected. What Mahomes does, expected. I think that's what we should see in the Super Bowl. Both of these guys can use their legs. Well, Stafford not as much. Stafford's still a little more old school. I should even say that. But next year and going forward, the last great statue has retired, and Joe Burrow's running is probably going to play a major role in this game.
I would say two statues, Roethlisberger and Brady.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they are both out, yes. But even Roethlisberger had more mobility than Brady. He had a different type of mobility, more of a pocket, scramble around the pocket. And now it's like, no, it's okay to get a first down on your legs. You don't need to throw it if you can get there on your legs and get down.
Yeah. And I think in this case, what we're looking at is the end of an era. And obviously right now, at least for the next probably 10 years, easy, the running quarterback era. Now, what's going to happen here is I have to wonder in this case when and if it's going to revert back to the pocket and everything like that and the way that the system was, because everything circles back around again. As running quarterbacks start taking more injuries, especially with big budget money being dropped, Patrick Mahomes, I'm throwing this directly in this direction because there are years in the future, I think 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, where Patrick Mahomes is going to be making $50 million a year plus. And as a running quarterback who's pushing 28, 29, 30 years old, if he takes a hit and he loses some of that mobility, the Chiefs are going to start looking at it from a dollar sign standpoint about how effective he can be if he's lost some of those legs. So I think, you have to look at it from that perspective. Will it possibly flip back? Will it end up going into, God help me if I say this for mentioning this, but will the Wildcat become a thing? Will we end up having some kind of a weird, fakakta sort of system where you have a 2 quarterback setup or something bizarre like that? I don't know. The running quarterback is here for now, but it is not permanently here to stay. I just don't see that happening.
So I think we have to be careful when we say running quarterback and then use Patrick Mahomes. What do you mean? Patrick Mahomes, 90% of the times I see him run, he gets down. He doesn't go for the juke unless it's super there, and he gets down. Russell Wilson, he gets down. So to be able to use your legs to pick up a first down and get down and slide down and avoid that injury, I don't think that that's an issue with possibly getting injured. Those quarterbacks who have gotten injured, who are more known to be mobile, were also more aggressive, more along the lines of Lamar Jackson, who doesn't necessarily get down when he should. And he did get hurt this year. But what I do wonder about the Wildcat when it comes to money is if you can have a guy like Taysom Hill be your starting quarterback, or a guy like Tim Tebow be your starting quarterback and only pay them, my God, $20 million a year, right?
Yeah, so you got that lying around.
They're not quite getting quarterback money. They are getting superstar money, but like maybe running back, great tight end money. Will they be more replaceable when they get injured for that next guy coming up? Yeah, and like Brian says, I agree with you 100%, Brian. Mobile QB, yes. Run first QB, no. The whole Michael Cat quarterback, you really just have to pay him less and be prepared to just grab. There's plenty of those guys in college. You just have to be prepared to grab a new one every 3 to 4 years and build the rest of your team around that and hope that nobody's defense can keep up or no one will adjust their defense to that one team. So that's what you got to take advantage of.
They will, though. It's going to be something where they're going to every team right now is figuring out how to adapt to, the Patrick Mahomes, the Taysom Hill, anybody that has speed. Daniel Jones, let's throw Daniel Jones into the mix. If basically under the new system that the Buffalo Giants now have, if they allow him to be able to run more, you guarantee that every other team in the NFC East and the rest of the NFL are going to be looking at this and thinking, okay, how do we stop those legs? And I used Patrick Mahomes as the example because, like I said, he's got multiple 3 or 4 years there where he's going to be making $50 million or more for each of those years. And if he loses some of that mobility, his value for that amount of money is something that ownership of any team is going to be looking at and being like, is this really the way we want this to go? And that's where like I said, I don't think that the running quarterback is here to stay. I think it's here for now until it adapts into something else. What that something else is anybody's guess right now, but we've got this for at least the next 5 years, I think.
Well, and yeah, I let I don't like how I do want to take a moment to go down your Giants route for just a minute, because I think you make an unbelievable point
Good for me.
about how little the Giants used Daniel Jones's leg. I've made it multiple times. I'm going to say it again. I think they went for type of coaching staff, because they went for the staff that said, look, here's a guy who's mobile, who we're using mobile. He runs when he has to run. The big difference, I don't think Daniel Jones has Josh Allen's arm strength, but I think he may be a more accurate passer. So how will that work out? But you have to use those legs as a threat, even if it's just a threat to keep. We're going to rush for, and I don't think you would call it a spy anymore, but a guy who's going to be zoned in the middle of the defensive. The linebacker is going to play zone, short middle game, and keep his eye on the quarterback. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes makes $50 million in 2030 and 2031 with no dead cap space, by the way.
Yeah. I think at 1 year, I think he dips down and only makes like 47 or 48, but then comes back up again. So I think 1 year he drops a little bit to under 50 million for the year. I don't know. I hope he can survive that way. I really do. It's a little tough to have to basically, cut back when you're not making as much money that way. But but like I said, from a player standpoint, you got to wonder about that. But with Daniel Jones, one of the things that I liked about Joe Judge initially is he used Daniel Jones's legs. They were, they did a lot of trick plays. They did some unique stuff. That's what sold Joe Judge, I think, on Gettleman and the rest of management and the rest of the team, is the fact that he was willing to do things that were not done before. And initially he did, and then just flipped back to everything that we had come to know and despise as Giants fans, and cap it all off by a 3rd and 9 surrender sneak, inside your own 5-yard line, which will go down in history as one of New York City's worst football plays of all time. I have spoken ad nauseum about that. I'm not going to beat that dead horse already again. But yeah, so like I said, I think the end of the running quarterback is nigh, or at least I can see it on the horizon, I think.
I don't know. I can picture it, but right now we have Burrow, who is more than competent with his legs. We have Mahomes, more than competent with his legs. Allen, more than competent with his legs. Kyler Murray, more than competent with his legs. Deshaun Watson was more than competent with his legs. Dak Prescott, more than competent with his legs. Like, the best quarterback who isn't a running quarterback is, and again, let's use mobile. Let's keep using the word mobile like Brian suggested. The best non-mobile quarterback happens to be going to the Super Bowl in Stafford. But I think the next 10 quarterbacks who definitively qualify as mobile, I barely know who you would qualify as immobile and playing in the NFL at this point.
That's what I'm saying. This is what it is for now, but I don't think it's going to be permanent. Now you mentioned Stafford. You talk about what that player has been and what has happened to him, suffering for so many. I thought about this from two perspectives. One, basically how much he suffered in Detroit for so long, and now has the chance to, finally get a championship. Odell Beckham falls into, I think, a little bit of the same category. You suffer with pretty much crap teams for a while, and you suddenly have a chance to win a Super Bowl in a big market city. The other side of the equation is you have Mr. Jared Goff, who went from a team in LA to a team that struggled to win their first, I think, 10 or 11 games before they finally won a game. And I think what was more famous about that was not so much that Jared Goff had won the game, but the reaction from his girlfriend in the middle of a Sports Illustrated shoot, because that video went viral and people were like, oh, well, that's what Jared Goff is apparently dating. So you know what? Congratulations on him for winning that game. If you look at it's funny, if you look at it on YouTube, you see basically her reaction to it versus him throwing that touchdown and getting the win. Guess which one of them has more views on YouTube?
It's not hard guess. It's not hard guess.
Nope. But I look at it from his standpoint, because he has a lot of friends with that LA team. He has a lot, he won a Super Bowl with that team. And now he's struggling, with a Detroit team that, every single year has honestly been brutal. And I have to wonder I've always wondered how that feels when you go from like a championship team to basically a dregged team like this. So
yeah,
he was with the because Goff was with the Rams when they won the Super Bowl. He was the quarterback, wasn't he?
They lost to the Patriots that year.
Did they?
In a 10-3 game. That was all defense. Coach McVay got brainwashed out. Which I think is, interesting in our conversations about how the Super Bowl is going to go, because based on everything I read and understand, Andy Reid last week against Cincinnati. He had a game plan. He went with the game plan. It worked. When the other team adjusted, Andy Reid didn't readjust. And that seems to be the story of why they lost. McVay seems to be a coach who can be outcoached. Mm-hmm. He made the single worst challenge call I've ever seen in my entire life on that phone. Literally the guy's arm, what replay were you looking at? The man's arm literally touched the ground with the ball in his hand. What was that? The first one was bad, but at least maybe you're hoping there's an angle and things are desperate. You need the first down. But the second one was the worst, unbelievable, bad call I've ever seen. He got bailed out by his quarterback after his quarterback got bailed out by the defensive back not catching the interception, which, by the way, every time you see one of these interceptions that get dropped, just remember that's why they're cornerbacks. That's why they're not wide receivers, because if they could catch the ball, they would be there. A storyline that's not getting a lot of play that I think will start to get a lot of play next week, especially since baseball's on strike, is that Stafford went to LA with his best friend Kershaw, and now he's got a chance to win the Super Bowl, just like Kershaw, won a World Series for the Dodgers.
You mentioned something funny in this case. Yeah, next week pitchers and catchers are supposed to report, so we have to actually cover that and everything that's going on there, because obviously baseball is a big part of American culture, and we can make fun of that one until we're blue in the face. I'm going to talk to Mike Ventola. I'm going to bring him back because he, at least as from the AAA level, actually has work to do. Basically, speaking of, actually, I don't know if you heard about this, but some AAA divisions now are doing the robot umpire. So yes. I think I've always been a big fan of that. I think it's the right way of doing things. But it's interesting that it's gone from, I think, the Atlantic League to a AAA level. So it's working its way up slowly to the major league level. So when this strike is over, they finally negotiate something, and all 78 fans start actually attending games again. That could be something that actually could make it a little more interesting. Again, the ratings are crap. The ratings are going to be worse after this, even if we get a baseball season. And if you look at La Portada, I had done an article about how sports in general is on the decline, because the 18 to 49 market doesn't care to sit around and watch a sport anymore. Engagement, involvement, or at the very least, watching and learning. The reason people like, Jacksepticeye, people like PewDiePie, Game Grumps, and all the rest of those are as big as they are as Let's Plays is not just the interactivity, but also the education that comes from their favorite games. Tool-assisted speedruns are big because of the fact that kids can learn and do better in their own performance, in their own engagement. And that's where I think the big part of this is, so regular sports where you sit there and you just watch it is lost on the 18 to 49 crowd. And I did a long ass article about how their TV ratings for the Super Bowl have continually dropped every single year since 2012, because those kids don't care anymore. There's too many options. So,
I think there's a lot of other options, and obviously video game play is one. I mean, the first argument there is kids are doing video games instead of sports, and I think that's in some ways a good thing. I'm looking at me and you, and I'm remembering that that you and I both had stellar, and I mean stellar, baseball careers growing up. I mean, we were.
I got 2 hits, in 2 years, man.
Yeah,
4 hits in 3. Okay,
it's hard to get 2 hits when you bat number 9 and get taken out after the 3rd inning every game.
When you platoon right field, that's basically that's when you know your crap. I don't even know about your little league career. I'm actually going to ask you about this.
Scott, I'm with you. I platooned right field.
But I don't know what team you played for. I got to find that out. Hey, we'll talk about that later, though.
But you can do that, or maybe you're at home and you can play Mario Kart instead. And there's people on TV playing Mario Kart TV, meaning all the various streaming services. And so, yeah, you connect with that. You don't bother connecting with baseball that you can't play. Like, you and I watched baseball even though we couldn't play baseball because that's what there was. But now you can watch Mario Kart. There's a group of other kids who are playing Mario Kart. They might call themselves nerds, but they're not treated with the negativity of a nerd who might have, it's not that same connotation. There's other things I'm sure that I don't realize and you don't realize that kids are into, and the kids today can be, oh, that's nerdy, but they don't use that word nerdy to describe it as what we would have described as nerdy. So yeah, video gaming is becoming way more mainstream, and why wouldn't it? I mean, watching it, kids, my son bought me a Switch for the holidays so he could watch me play video games.
Nice.
Because that's fun for him. I went to his college dorm room. They have there's four guys living in the apartment, 4 TVs. Each TV has their own personal game console. I know this weekend, Pokemon Arceus came out. They woke up on Friday morning, went and bought a copy for those of them that didn't want to do a downloaded copy. And while the rest of the world was snowed in, they played Pokemon Arceus for 25 hours, 36 hours straight. So, yeah, of course.
Arceus has his own game now? Or is it another version of like Red, Blue, Emerald, and the rest of them? Whatever.
No, it's a little different than one of the other versions.
Yeah, because Arceus is the god of all Pokemon.
So. Well, hey. He has his own game now. Pokemon Arceus just dropped this weekend. It was the best and messiest Pokemon game ever. That was the headlines.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. But to that note, now they've played it for how many hours straight, and now they're probably watching other people play it for how many hours straight, and not giving a rat's tahootie about what's happening on their college dorm with their college basketball team, college football team, college baseball team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're not some awkward minority. So, yes, I don't know that that all traditional sports are in trouble, but I do think they're going to they are going to come down to a new equilibrium of what they can expect fan base. I mean, there are other people my son's age who, want to watch sports. So those people do exist. But it's not like in our age where you watch sports or you were kind of looked at funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Back in my day, I used to get beaten up for knowing Mike Tyson punch-out codes. Now that kind of stuff is expected.
Right. For knowing that Arceus was the king of the Pokemon, the guy of the Pokemon, you would have gotten your butt kicked. Now, for not knowing it, you're going to get your butt kicked.
Yes, and we personally know some of the people that kicked my ass. Some of which are in your grade too. But irrespective of that, yeah, like I said, maybe I was just ahead of the curve, I guess I'll say. But it's like I said, the ability to play games, watch, interact, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and all this kind of stuff, to connect that way, and again, to study and watch other gamers. Esports is $1 billion a year industry right now, and it's expected to double, I think, in the next 2 years. It's supposed to go to $2 billion next year. And I think in the next probably 10 years, I think in this case, what's going to end up happening, it's going to overtake baseball. It might overtake basketball, but I think football will probably drop first. I think basketball will at some point. I'm going to be guts on this. I'm going to say basketball will overtake football at some point. I do.
I think you're right on there, because I think if I am a young parent, well, first of all, as a parent, I can tell you, the single best sport to watch your child play is probably basketball. It's a legit short amount of time. It's usually in a temperature controlled environment, and you're like, look, you're in and you're out. Baseball, not temperature controlled. Who knows how long it's going to go? Football, not temperature controlled, extra long. You're scared of your kid getting hurt most of the game. Hockey, cold. You're worried about your kid getting concussion. Soccer, I think there might be some interest in as a parent. My kids didn't play soccer. But wrestling, which is a sport I love, my goodness, is the worst parent experience. I think it goes for all martial arts sports that I've been involved in my life. As a parent, oh my goodness, you don't want to go. You don't want to go. You're sitting around for hours to watch your kid for minutes. You don't want that.
And of course, you don't want to see your kid get hurt either. And that's part of the concern with wrestling, boxing, any kind of MMA of any sort, martial arts or anything like that.
Regular wrestling, no. Collegiate wrestling, collegiate scholastic wrestling, I don't think there's a true fear of your child getting hurt.
Mm.
But yes, basketball, I think as a parent, you are going to, it's an easy sport to encourage, an easy sport to enjoy, even if your kid's only, if your kid is just good enough to be a rotation player, there's a lot of joy in it as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Football, I don't know. So yeah, I think basketball is the parent push of a sport that's going to grow. And if you're talking about money, like basketball doesn't have the problem that baseball does, where you have to start off and not make any money. As a matter of fact, you're starting off making money when you're 19 or
LeBron,
18.
Carmelo, or anybody like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the finances are there and the long career is there, which football doesn't have either. Baseball has a long career, but you can't get started in your first 6 years. They do everything they can to keep you from making money once you even make it in the big league. So, like financially, that's where you want to put your kids, unless you have wealth to begin with, and then you're going to make your kid play golf.
Well, you mentioned something before about the minor leagues. There has been a push lately. By the way, I just want to highlight John's comment. Ratings are bad and dropping across all TV and all demographics. Live sports are actually dropping a little less than TV as a whole. Yes, TV in general. Broadcast network TV averages 32% commercials in an hour-long show. So let's just leave it. U.S. is high that way. The rest of the world is a little bit better. But irrespective of that, there has been a lot of pushback lately on the minor league baseball level about the quality of life that these players have, the low incomes that they're making, and the various things that they're trying to do as a quote unquote rite of passage. And frankly, the long-term psychological effects that it's putting on minor league players, who a lot of cases, and obviously most of them far more than not, actually never make it past like the A and AAA level, a AA level, let alone AAA, where you can make a quasi living, or a major league level. They all have aspirations of getting to the professional level, but you have so many by the thousands every year who are, and I think in some cases irrevocably scarred because of what they had to deal with at the minor league level to basically just try to survive at that level on, no income, bad environment, crummy hotel rooms, bad accommodations. I'm not talking about putting them up in the Marriott or nothing like that, but I mean, these kids are sleeping on the floor. They're eating ramen noodles and corn. I have been down that road. I do not want that road on any kid there. I don't, to live that way is in some ways psychologically damaging and demoralizing. And I see Major League Baseball players, they don't talk about that much because obviously they succeeded, but the 99% that never do, how is their mental state when they put that much effort and that much time in, and then suddenly are 25, 26, 27 years old and have to retire and start over?
Yeah, yes. If you're lucky, let's assume that you did do the college thing first, right? And then you got drafted. That life is not pleasant at all.
Yeah.
So now you haven't worked in your chosen field for, let's say, 5-6 years, and now you're going to try to get into your chosen field. That's rough. There's a reason why people don't do baseball. There's a reason why Kyler Murray's like, no, I'll get beat up in football, even if I fail. I get a 4-year rookie quarterback deal.
Mm-hmm.
What? I think that's worth it. Like,
you're set for life just in that deal if you're smart with it. That deal alone.
Yes. So you can get a 4-year rookie deal as a quarterback, or and I guarantee you fail, or I'll give you 50% chance of becoming a major leaguer and getting a deal passed after 6 years of 6 years of playing and getting into arbitration. So a successful baseball player. You'll make a lot more money over your lifetime with that baseball deal. But boy, getting there, sleeping where you sleep, playing like you said, even if it was just like living in college, at least if you had that much support, like we guarantee you, a decent hotel every night with, like a Marriott where you get a dinner and whatever. But you don't, and it's not fun. It's.
Yeah. You hear about these kids that are, sometimes sleeping out of their car, sleeping in the street, and just crap like that, just to try and, just to hold on to that, that I'll use the phrase dollar in a dream. And, there's been some pushback also in the Latin American countries. because these kids are seeing baseball as their way out. They'll sign a deal, get to maybe high A, double A level. And then basically if something happens, they get injured, they don't pan out, they go back home and they have squat for job skills in a third world nation. So yes, exactly. Bingo. And as a result, it makes it a really tough situation that there has been some pushback on that. And yes, you are dead right, because you'd rather see a kid be 18 years old. Even in the MLS, you hover around like 90 grand, that sort of thing. But the benefit like the MLS level is that they got 15 and 16-year-old kids playing in professional U.S. soccer. If you got the skills, you got the talent, you can make a decent, not amazing living, but you can survive. Hell, you can survive in New York City on some of the stuff that basically these NYCFC players are making. And it's enough to be able to get through while you're trying to still build. That is the AAA for soccer, and you can make a damn good living that way alone. The XFL was the same way. You made between $60,000 and $250,000 a year, depending on what position you played. You survived, and I'm curious to see what happens with the USFL as far as that part of it goes. I haven't looked into it personally, but if they're going to try and do the same sort of setup, where these guys can make a solid living and basically audition for the NFL level again. That's the kind of stuff that Major League Baseball needs to take a page from if they're willing to drop the money.
Well, without taking the owner side here, if they want to get money to the minor leagues, it is going to cost money to the major leaguers. There's just
yes, it is.
That's just there is only a finite amount of money, but there could be other benefits for major leaguers if that happens that way. Because if to the guys who are there right now, that might not be attractive, but to guys who are just there, who are like, yeah, this might be my only year in the major leagues, but you telling me what? I can still play minor league ball for another 10 years as opposed to 1 year and quitting. But we don't know what's on. Like we read, we get some insight into what might or might not be on major leaguers' minds. We know that baseball, the game itself, needs to make changes. Robots, I think, as John points out, getting rid of some of those clowns who were umpiring.
So we say the older ones that have caused issues within baseball, occasionally suing them.
Might be a place to save some money and get some money to the players. But yeah, baseball.
But their own union would fight that back, though.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. But at some point, we'll keep you on board, but slowly but surely we're going to phase you out. Why don't you get jobs repairing the machines? Horrible to say, but yes, absolutely. John, you're not up on the screen here, but yes. Agreed, John. It is.
Exactly. You want to read it? You just want to read the quote real quick?
It's also a big ask for these kids culturally to live with stranger host families or out of their cars, buses for peanuts, riding buses to places like Birmingham, Round Rock, Texas, Savannah, Sanford, Tallahassee, etc. And John
southern places though. He didn't mention like Minnesota or someplace cold.
I got what John's saying here. So, the context is clear, John. I'm on board with what you're saying. We only got 5 minutes left, so I think I'm going to not continue down this path. I'm just going to say that if you ask me today, I am going to take Cincinnati because I have another week to come to my senses. And I will again reiterate what I said on our NFL show, NFL Insiders, on Sunday. Now I will say it for the entire NFL. The scariest thing the NFL won't see is if you do not see Joe Burrow all over your TV between now and next season, be afraid, be very afraid. If he's not eating up every commercial chance he can, wow, I love him.
Yeah. I think in this case with Joe Burrow, he got on everybody's map with something like this. And, even with the declining TV ratings in the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be something that he's gotten a lot of, he's getting a lot of cred, and I guarantee you're going to see him in commercials. You've already seen Trevor Lawrence in Subway commercials. So he's the next Subway guy at this point. if you put a gun to my head right now, and we're going to break this down a lot more next week, but I would have to go with LA on this. But having bet against Cincinnati in the last 2 games, we saw how well that worked out. So I don't know, maybe third time's the charm. Maybe it's not. I don't know, but I'm just going to stick with LA because LA technically is playing at true home in this case, because ironically enough, and we didn't address this is the second time in NFL history, and ironically second year in a row, that there is a team that's playing in their own home stadium. And I think that's kind of quirky in some ways because it never happened before. There was a big deal last year with Tampa, and guess what? It happened again. But yeah, we're going to do a full Super Bowl breakdown on that. Probably do some proper coverage on where people like the Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford. Who knows what's going to happen there? Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo's last pass in San Francisco, very possibly was last week, and interception, much like Brett Favre, although not quite as successful. His last pass in Green Bay was an interception. So I don't know, but we're going to break that down. We're going to go hardcore with that next week. But for right now, we are going to start wrapping this up. We got a couple minutes left, but I just figured to just do a shameless preview of my show tonight at 7 p.m. for Tales from the Film Set. Me, Rob, Ryan, and JT are breaking down car movies, and car movies specifically that do not have the words Fast or Furious in the title. Because when people think car movies and explosions, admittedly, 9.5 of those movies is really what people think about most. So we're going to be regaling some stupid picture car stories, some of the stunts and some of the things that we have seen firsthand. What I personally dealt with yesterday with a picture car at like 5:30 in the morning in Brooklyn, because basically if you're in the New York City area, you probably noted this, but we got a ton of snow dropped us over the weekend. And so I'm going to basically break down some of the oddities that ended up happening there. But bottom line, I still got paid anyway, so yay for that. But yes, we are going to wrap this up now because we got like a minute left here. Obi, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say we did not get a chance to skewer Jimmy G, but any chance I had at all of being on the Jimmy G bandwagon ended during that San Francisco game. I went in rooting for San Francisco, and by the time the game was over, let me just say something. I thought I liked defense. Watching San Francisco play football 2 weeks in a row almost killed my brain. I'm so happy they're out.
So basically the wheels came off the bandwagon, you're saying?
Oh my God, I just can't watch them. They're just hard to watch. It's hard to watch a defense that good with a quarterback who can't take advantage of it. Oh my God.
And remember, he would have been, if it was Bill Belichick's decision, he would have been Tom Brady's replacement in New England. So who knows what would have happened there. But anyway,
maybe he would have figured something out. I don't know. It was tough. It was so hard to watch Jimmy G. Yeah. And by the time he threw that interception, which I didn't even think it was his worst play of the game, I was like, I'm done with this guy. Mm-hmm. They are. Everyone who said they were winning with him and or in spite of him was right. And I thought, don't sleep on Jimmy G. Put him to bed.
Fair enough. So, but we'll talk about his potential destinations and where he may go actually next week as well, I think. But for right now, we're going to wrap this up. Like I said, tune in 7 o'clock tonight. We're going to be talking car movies, explosions, and all things that would make Michael Bay happy that don't involve, like I said, Fast and Furious movies. For myself, for Mr. Obi Spencer, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for John DeRosa and also Brian Ergo for dropping comments in there as well. This is, of course, Spanglish World Sports Den. Find us on Twitter at SSW Sports Den and Instagram and Facebook at Spanglish World Sports Den. For myself, for Obi, thanks a lot. You guys are awesome. And you know what? Take care. Stay warm. Still winter. Well,